We all want to feel peace in our lives. Peace in our choices, our beliefs, our relationships, and our environment. I've learned that this desired contentment is often found through holding on to less. When we pare down what we own, what we consume, and what we value, we're left with what's intentional, a personalized curation of what is important and true and useful to us. I'm Shannon Leyko, and you're listening to Paring Down, a podcast aimed at helping you declutter not only your home, but any area of your life that's overwhelming. Here, we're having interesting and honest conversations about the physical and mental clutter that drowns out what truly matters to each of us. And together, we'll learn how to pare it all down, not for the sake of perfection or becoming rigid, rather so we can move through life with less overwhelm and more joy, wisdom, and peace. Hey guys, it's good to be back every single week. And this episode, I'm going to be talking about my upcoming move to Kodiak, Alaska. And a lot of you have asked, what am I doing in preparation for the move? How do you declutter before a move? What should we be decluttering before we move? And so I wanted to talk about it because I'm going through it right now. And even if you're not moving, pretending you're moving is a really great way to declutter, frankly. I think I brought this up on an episode recently. I don't remember. Sorry, half the time I don't remember what I say. So if I repeat myself, just pretend I'm like that loony aunt of yours that sometimes tells the same story. We still love her. We can still listen to her, but sometimes we're like, Aunt Looney, you've said this before. That's me, okay? So the point is that I watched the documentary The Minimalists on Netflix back in probably 2020 when it came out. I think that's when it came out. I don't know. It's still on there. You can watch it. And one of the guys did a mock move as his form of decluttering where he boxed everything up like he was going to be moving. And then he only went into the boxes for 2 weeks to pull out things individually that he needed one by one. And at the end of the 2 weeks, whatever was still in the boxes, he didn't even look at, he just got rid of. That's a kind of extreme way of doing it, but it holds the same kind of sentiment, I guess, if you want to call it that I'm talking about today, which is let's evaluate what we actually want to bring forward with us in life to our new house or just moving forward as we exist in the world. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast for any period of time, you know why it's important to declutter, that it helps us psychologically, emotionally, obviously physically, all of the things. It's a really helpful thing to do to make your life easier. But why should we declutter before moving specifically? Well, first of all, it saves us time and effort. So packing and unpacking becomes so much easier when you're only dealing with the things you actually use and love. A lot of us think, oh, I'm so busy before the move, I will just put it aside as I unpack and get rid of it then. No, you won't. You want to do this before you move because even though moving is stressful and even though you're busy when you're moving, which I know that because I'm in it right now, you're going to be more busy when you get there, or even if you're not quite as busy, you are overwhelmed learning a new layout, learning maybe a new area. If you're moving to a completely new area, you're just going to be itching to get settled into your new space as quickly as possible, which means you're going to be putting the clutter back where it was in your old house. It's going to go back in the garage. It's going to go back in your closet. It's going to go back because you're just want to get things done as quickly as possible. You're not going to also want to then set aside some decluttering space in your fresh new place, right? You're I don't want to take up another bedroom with everything I need to take to Goodwill or whatever. No, get it done ahead of time so that you can start with a fresh start upon your arrival. And if you take some time ahead of time, right? I'm moving in 2 months. I'm thinking already, I'm not actually packing things into boxes yet, but I'm thinking already what I need to be getting rid of so that when I am putting things in boxes, it'll take a lot less time. It'll become way less stressful. Now, the military does box up most of our stuff for us, which is both wonderful and dangerous. But we unpack everything. At least I do because I want to put it in the right place. I think they offer those services for the military. But the point is, I think most of us unpack our stuff. So both packing and unpacking, it goes a lot faster when you just have less to do. A big thing is that this reduces moving costs. Again, military pays for most of it, but only to a certain extent. I forget what the weight limit is, but they only ship a certain amount of weight. But even if you aren't in the military, then you're going to be paying for the cost of how much your stuff weighs in order for the movers to move it. I think that's pretty motivating to get rid of a bunch of stuff. And for me, that guides what I start with. People ask, like, what should I start with? We're going to go through like 10 or so different categories or items that you really should focus on before you move. And for me, I really prioritize the things that are a lot of weight and volume so that it saves money. I mentioned this kind of about saving the time and effort, but another reason that we want to declutter before we move is you want to give yourself that fresh start. A new home is a chance for like a clean slate, and decluttering ensures that you're only bringing items that truly serve you, that are for the best possible version of yourself. I'm not talking about the unrealistic version of yourself that I've talked about before, but the best possible version of your space that can support you. It's just a good excuse to start fresh. I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons I love moving, is that inevitably, in so many different ways, we make mistakes where we live and where we are and all of that. And so it's nice to just be like, okay, I'm not going to make that same mistake again. And it's easier to start from a blank slate than it is to try and like remedy what you did wrong before. I'm not saying we should run away from our problems, but like when we're talking about decluttering, you can be like, oh, next time I'm not going to put this here. And yes, that you could rearrange your house, right? A lot of what I'm saying in today's podcast can be applied to your home, even if you're not moving. But it is really nice to have a completely blank slate to move everything into in a way that serves you. So prioritize having a fresh start. But let's really dive into the meat of this episode, which is what we should declutter and how to declutter it before we move. So same as any other time you're decluttering, first of all, I want you to know you're going to have to set aside time to do it. It won't magically happen. Like this is just something you're going to have to do on top of selling the house, on top of trying to figure out where your kids are going to go to school next, on top of figuring out the movers and when they're going to arrive and getting all of your kids' vaccination, stuff transferred to the new school, and making sure that your dog's vet vaccinations are up to date and that they're groomed before you leave. I mean, I'm just talking through some of the smaller things of the mental load that go into moving. But on top of that, yes, you're going to have to set aside time to declutter if you want to make your life easier when you get there or when it's time to actually pack the boxes. And as you do this decluttering, you're using the same questions that you would ask yourself even if you weren't moving. So, would I buy this again today? Do I have something else that can represent this nostalgic memory? Is this a duplicate? Is this for present me, or is this for a past version of myself or an unrealistic future version of myself? So keep all of these questions in mind as you go through the decluttering, and just decide this is a priority in your life, that you have this fresh start ahead of you, that you don't want to live in a bogged down space. And in order to do that, you got to put in some work, but it doesn't have to be terrible work. Like I've said, decluttering is super fun. Put on a TV show while you do it. Put on a podcast while you do it. Chat with your family. Have a friend come over. You can find ways to make decluttering really fun. You just have to do it. And I feel like I'm kind of giving some tough love right now, but I'm also preaching to myself because we don't want to do it right before we move. I think we just are like so overwhelmed. I know I am, but I'm like, no. I'm going to be so much happier. And if I just do a little bit at a time, it adds up. It always does. I'm thinking specifically for me how we have too many pots and pans. And yes, that's my husband's domain, but he has recently said to me, like, he's ready to let go of some of that stuff, especially because we're going to be downsizing into a smaller home. Mind you, we had all of that stuff when we were in a smaller home before we came here. We have not accumulated more since living in our bigger home in Florida than the smaller home we lived in back in Ketchikan, Alaska. But he's ready to let it go, which is great. But he is not going to initiate that. And that's a whole different conversation. I'm okay with him not initiating that, for the record. It doesn't mean that as women or there should be one partner that's like always leading the way here. But in our dynamic, I know that I will need to initiate actually getting that done. And I haven't set aside the time to do it, but it would take us 10 or 15 minutes tops. What I need to do is the next time he's doing story time while I'm usually doing something else for the kids, I just need to put all the pots and pans on the counter. So when he comes out, we can just look at him. He tells me what he wants to keep, what he wants to donate, and do that. So that's what I mean when I say we just have to do it. Because what I don't want to do is I'm stressed because the movers get here tomorrow. I'm trying to get everything in boxes. Now I need to go label these separately, tell the movers not to move this box. This one's going to Goodwill. I want all that taken care of before that day. Let's take care of our future selves, as I talk about often, right? So if you're getting ready for a move or you want to do a mock move, the point is that you have to put in some work. All right, what specifically should we focus on? I start with clunky and heavy items. Like I said, this affects how much you pay for the movers, and it's the worst to unpack. I would start with your shoes. We all have more shoes than we need. I remember asking everybody to count their shoes. Like on my Instagram, I was like, count your shoes. Most people guesstimated. And then I had people DM me and be like, oh my gosh, I actually went and did what you said. I would have guesstimated that I owned 20 pairs of shoes. I actually owned 45 pairs of shoes. We own so many more shoes than we think. I think I'm a pretty minimal when it comes to my shoes. And I counted the other day and I still have 19 pairs of shoes. And that's including snow boots, that's including rain boots, that's including my wedding shoes that I've held on for nostalgia. But they're, if I ever needed to wear heels, I have them. I have one pair of black heels, one pair of nude heels. I have one pair of black sandals, one pair of neutral sandals. I have one pair of black boots and one pair of brown suede boots. And then I also have my warmer Ugg boots, right? Like it starts to add up. And all of a sudden I was like, how do I have 19 pairs of shoes? But I would encourage you to start with your shoes because they're clunky, they're hard to pack, they're going to take up space, and they're a practical item that will make your closet or wherever you keep shoes feel so much lighter in your new home. So if you don't know where to start when you're trying to figure out what to declutter before a move, I really suggest starting with your shoes. From there, I think it's really important to consider furniture. Of course, that is heavy, it is clunky, and you really need to consider your new space. For us, we kind of have a unique situation where we don't exactly know what our new home will look like moving to Kodiak. We find out 30 days before we move in what house we're going to get, because we're living in military housing. But I do know that the biggest military housing they have there, I think, is like 1,800 square feet. We live in 2,500 square feet currently, and it's certainly our home's not filled to the brim. But I know that we're going to be downsizing. I know that we have bigger pieces of furniture that I've held on to for nostalgia's sake that I'm probably better off letting go of because I doubt we're going to find a nook or a cranny to put them. One is an old bar that was in our dining room when I was growing up that I inherited from my mom. It's a beautiful antique bar, but I don't know the story behind it and the history. I've texted my stepdad, I texted my aunt, and they don't know either. And so right now it's in the garage, almost serving as like as a garage stand, right? Like has some of my husband's tools on top of it, but the drawers don't really work. So there's some tools in there, but it's generally just kind of taking up space. And as much as there's the nostalgia for me attached to it, the sentimentality of it being in our dining room, I will say that with time, I'm less attached to it. We have to be gentle with ourselves and give ourselves time to grieve maybe some of these more nostalgic items, but I'm ready to let that go. I think I'm going to keep the china cabinet. I had those two big pieces of antique furniture that were my mom's. I think I'm ready to let go of the bar, and I'm going to keep the antique china cabinet because it's just a little bit easier to fit into any space. So even if you don't know what your new layout's going to look like, you can still bring the minimum amount of furniture. But most of us do know what our space looks like that we're moving into, and we have to think through every single room. What will go in here? I remember doing this the first time we moved to Alaska from Virginia. We were downsizing only slightly from 1,800 square feet to 1,400, but the layout's different. And so what I did is I went room by room in our current house, the 1,800 square foot house, looked at every piece of furniture and said, where specifically is this going? Not, oh, this will go into another bedroom or I'll find a place for this. I thought through the new house and looked at my old house, and I realized we did not have room for the like little kitchen roller extra counter space situation thing that we had. I didn't have room for this chair, this one kind of like comfy chair that we had in our house. We didn't have a good spot for the desk that I had, which I never used in our old house. So I got rid of those things because I thought about it ahead of time. We have to think through your space, think what exactly is going to go where. Better yet, if you have a layout, like a piece of paper that shows you the rooms. I forget what they're called. Whatever those are called. You know what I mean? A map of your house. To go through that, your new house, and walk through your current house and like literally say, this is going to go here in this room. This is going to go here, and see what's left and say, oh, I don't have a spot for that. And you might think, oh, I don't want to get rid of that. But like, you have to be practical. If you don't have a spot for it in your new house, you can't bring it. And if you think, well, where am I going to put the stuff that's in that? Well, this is what decluttering is all about. Let's say you have a little stand or a little side table that's just, you don't have a good spot for it in the new house. Well, whatever is inside of that, you either need to find a new home for it or declutter it. And likely you need to declutter some stuff. Realistically, if you don't want your new home to feel bogged down, you got to get rid of some stuff. So maybe you need to downsize your book collection, which we'll get to in a minute too. But So furniture is a big one. Really consider your new space. Take that notebook through your house if you can and imagine where each piece will go. And that will save you a lot of money when it comes to moving too, since those are heavier items that cost you money with the movers. So you start with shoes and then you do furniture. Next, I do paperwork because that weighs a lot and adds up quickly and also is always hanging over my head. It's so annoying because it feels really tedious. But the good news is it does not have to be. Just pull out your files. You can do this in front of the television and take the general note that you really need most things only for 3 years. Tax returns, 3 years. Medical receipts, 3 years. Bank statements, 3 years. Most of it is 3 years. If there's some big thing in your life that you need to hold on to for longer than that, fine. But like take the 3-year rule and run with it and just quickly go through your papers. Anything that is a file that says taxes 2019, you're like, okay, I don't need that anymore. Take it all out. Get a big pile next to you. You can take it to an Office Max. I believe they have a shredding service there. If you have a shredder, great, do that. You can let your kids go to town with it with scissors like mine would love to do. My kids are natural shredders. I mean, they could really make a living off of it if they wanted to. And so go through all of that paperwork so you don't have so much paper following you to your new house. Nobody wants that. This also goes for your kids' schoolwork and art collections, right? If you don't have a system in place for that yet, what I would do is just be really ruthless with what you're actually going to keep. I am a very sentimental person. I've talked about this on past podcasts before, so I won't get into it. I love keeping things with my kids' handprints on it, but I try and keep it to like 5, no more than 10 items of schoolwork or artwork per year that I keep in their little folders. And so if you haven't gone through your kids' artwork in a long time, go through that. Really only keep the best. All types of paperwork. Just decide you're going to do that one weekend and it will go a lot faster than you think. It is not as tedious as we think when we like look at the piles of it or look at the files of it. I promise you, this is me encouraging you that you can do that one. And it's one of the easier ones because you can just like usually plop a pile of paper or you bring your file in front of the TV and like do it while watching mindless television. Don't do it while watching Paradise on Hulu because that is a really intense show. I'm so into that show right now. We actually just finished it. I'm so sad. I'm like, I don't think I can wait another year for it to come out, even though I don't have a choice. It's so good. Paradise on Hulu, if you haven't watched it. Oh my gosh, it's like a political thriller. But anyways, you can watch like Love is Blind or whatever other trashy show while you while you do paperwork. Hey guys, it's time for your ad break. Each week I like to say a huge thank you for your graciousness that these are part of the podcast. Here we go. Okay, so we did shoes, we do furniture, we do paperwork. Next, books and magazines. I do have an entire podcast episode about how to declutter books as a book lover. If you are a book lover, I know that can feel like a really difficult category, but again, they're extremely heavy and they take up a lot of space and they tend to just clutter up the house and they're going to cost you a lot of money to move. So that would be the fourth thing that I would focus on in terms of priorities. We have a free little library in our neighborhood. I love to take books to. You can do buy nothing books. People are buy nothing groups. People love to go get free books. I mean, obviously go to the library, but if you're trying to get rid of your books, do buy nothing pages. You can go to a used bookstore and see if they want to accept anything and really consider what realistically will I go back and reference or read again, which I think for many of us, I don't know many people who do a lot of rereads. Maybe some of your absolute favorite books, then great, hold on to those. But we don't reread everything that we've read, even if we like it, right? And then just let those favorites serve as your decor. If you like to have books on a shelf because that brings you joy, I'm all about that. That's great. That's a personalized home. Yes, please. That's not clutter. You just can't have it everywhere taking up your space because then it's going to overwhelm you and you don't have space for other necessities in your house or like pictures of your kids or whatever. Like we cannot keep everything that we like because that is what leads to an overwhelmed home. I know that we should just keep what we love and use, but sometimes I do think we need to remember that even if we love it, like it doesn't mean we have to keep it forever. You can go check it back out at the library if you loved that book. That's what I always tell myself. I'm like, okay, I really loved this book. If I want to read it again, I can go check it out at the library. No problem. But anyway, I won't get too far into that one because I know it could be a little bit sensitive and it is a little bit nuanced. So just go listen to that episode of Decluttering Books as a Book Lover if you feel like that's going to be a hurdle for you. But I would definitely suggest books before you move. So shoes, then furniture, then paperwork, then books. Now I would get out of like the clunky heavy items and go toward the ones that are going to affect your daily life. when you arrive where you're going to arrive. This is when I would move into the fifth thing is your kitchen as a whole. Purge those duplicate utensils. Those broken appliances are the ones that you never use, but you always thought you would. Of course, expired pantry items, right? So really focus on your kitchen as a whole. That's, like I said, something that I know we personally need to focus on, and that will make your life daily better in your new place because the kitchen is the heart of the home. Even if you don't love to cook, you're often in your kitchen. So when you arrive somewhere new, you want to really only be unpacking the things you're going to be using regularly in your kitchen or that are your favorite ones. I would even say make it a goal to get rid of half of your kitchen stuff. I know that's extreme and you might be like, you must have a lot of stuff if you're going to get rid of half of it. But I actually think you might surprise yourself. You might have 3 spatulas. You can't, well, that's a terrible number to choose because you can't do 1.5 spatulas, but you might have 4 different spatulas. See what could you do to get it down to 2? Or what could you do to get your pans down to half of what you currently have? Like, do you need the different size nonstick pans really? Like I have a really small one and I have a medium one and I could cook an egg. Yes, I like the small one when I'm like making an egg, but I could easily cook an egg on a slightly bigger one and it's going to be fine. And I'm not a chef. So maybe someone's out there being like, no, you can't. It's better to cook 1 egg or 2 eggs on a smaller pan. I wouldn't know, but they taste the same to me. And so like you have to think through, do I only have this because it came in a set with different sizes? Do I really need all these bowls? Do I really want to keep all these water bottles that I never use? That's something I'm going to go through actually, is that I used to drink my chai lattes at home, which I do want to get back into doing. But I just feel like I have this one cup that it tastes like old chai latte, no matter how much I wash it. And so I don't drink water out of it. And since I haven't been making my chais at home, it's just been sitting in the cupboard probably for a year without being used. And you know what? I don't think I'm going to take it with me because if and when I hopefully do start making my chais at home, once I find a mix that I actually like again, it's been a whole journey. I don't want it to taste like the old chai mix, like some cups just taste like coffee. I don't know. Am I gross? Like I promise I washed these things out, but they just have like a leftover taste. So, anyways, I think I'm going to get rid of that. And so just like really going through, my kids yesterday discovered a donation box in the garage. Like I made a rookie mistake and I didn't bring it straight to Goodwill. This was stuff that is Goodwill stuff. As you guys know, I do different forms of getting rid of things, but sometimes I still use Goodwill. Anyway, one of them was like, we went to Disney for spring break and you got free like mugs for staying there, travel mugs. And so you got to pick out one that has a different color top. And Aaron and I don't need new mugs. Frankly, the kids don't need mugs, but they were really excited about theirs. So I didn't declutter theirs, especially because it's so fresh, but I decluttered mine and Aaron's as soon as we got home and I put it in the Goodwill thing. And at the same time, I was like, well, if they're bringing in 3 new mugs, then I need to get rid of some stuff in our kid cupboard. And so I'm not going to just add to it. And so I got rid of these clunky souvenir type like dinosaur bowls that they got frozen or I don't know, whatever, ices or something in one time from wherever. And we don't really use them. They're cute and fun, but decluttering. So anyway, the 2 that were my husband's and I travel mugs from Disney and these ice cream bowls were in the box in the garage. And my son came back in, my 7-year-old last night holding them. And I was like, my friend, we're going to go ahead and donate those. And he was like, but we just got these. I was like, those aren't yours. Don't worry. Yours are in the cabinet. You still have your mug. If you want to go pour a drink into it right now, we can. You can totally use it. But those were mine and Daddy's and we don't need them. And so we're going to give them to someone else who really likes Disney stuff. And he was like, but what about the dinosaur things? And I said, honey, when was the last time you ate ice cream out of the dinosaur? And he was like, well, I did that one time. And I was like, baby, we don't have enough space in our new house in Alaska. We got the new mugs from, I just explained it to him. Sorry. I'm like, making the story longer than it needs to be. But the point is that I held my ground. I don't always do that with my kids. Like, I don't want them to feel like I'm throwing away their stuff. But he and I talked about it and he was fine with it. He was like, okay, you're right. It's okay. And he went and put them back in the garage when I asked him to. The idea here is to really think about what you need to bring with you or what you should bring with you. If you haven't used those cute dinosaur cups, don't bring it with you. You don't need all the travel mugs that were free. Throw away all of the takeout menus. I mean, obviously you're not going to use that in your new house unless you're moving right down the street. Try and purge half of your kitchen. It will feel so good. All right, you do the clunky items and then you do the kitchen. Next, if you're a parent, I would do toys and the kids' items because obviously those things will drive you crazy. So I'm going to do an episode sooner than later to talk through best practices for decluttering kid stuff. I have some episodes about decluttering toys, but I feel like I don't have a good one that explains my approach or what I've learned is a good approach for how to include your kids versus not include your kids, what to keep, what not to keep, how to know what they'll use or how to know how much is enough. Like, I just think I could do a better job diving into that. So I am going to do a solo episode on that soon. But if you need more help, I do already cover most of that in my complete guide to decluttering kid stuff. I think it's on sale right now. I should know that because I'm in charge of this, but none of you will be surprised that I don't remember half of what I've done. I'm pretty sure it's on sale for $16 right now. It's a $30 guide. And so go get that on sale. In fact, I'll make a note for myself to make sure it's on sale by the time this comes out. So yeah, you can go get the complete guide to decluttering kid stuff, which gives you ideas for gamifying with your kids to help them declutter, where to start. It gives you little challenges. And that would be a great thing to use, honestly, before your move to declutter the kid stuff. There's 13 kid categories that are covered, from toys to kitchen utensils to clothes to outdoor toys to electronics, all of that. And since there's 13, I give you a different timer challenge to get you started. And I think you could probably get that done in 13 days if you put some effort into it, right? And so that would be a great way to kind of motivate you if you are getting ready to move, or if you just really want to get rid of this kid stuff, even if you're not moving, is go ahead and follow that guide, because it tells you what to do. I think a lot of times we just need someone to like tell us what to do so we don't have to like figure it out ourselves, because that takes a lot of brain work. So I did that for you because I love decluttering and figuring it out for you. And so that's a great option. But yeah, in terms of categories, start with that kitchen and then move to the kids stuff, specifically the toys. I always suggest doing a full sweep by yourself without the kids, because you know what they play with, what they will miss and what they won't. But hold on to it for maybe 2 or 3 weeks, see if they miss it. Even if you're like, oh my gosh, but in 6 months, they might think about it. Okay, well then you'll have to be a parent in 6 months and say, hey, I'm so sorry, bud, you hadn't played with that in so long that I didn't think you were going to miss it and we didn't have room for it in the moving truck, right? Like, I really don't think those kind of conversations are going to scar your kids. Sometimes you just got to say, I had to make an executive decision as your parent and I love you. As long as you're not disrespecting them all the time and taking their stuff and throwing them away, I really don't think that's going to scar them for life. When there's like 1 or 2 things that like in 6 months from now, they kind of remember that they used to have. It's okay. You're the parent. You can be confident in your decision to have gotten rid of it 6 months ago. And of course, go through their clothes and anything that they've outgrown. I would definitely go through a sentimental bin again. I've mentioned this before, that you change you have a change of heart is what's sentimental to you down the line, versus in the moment, it can feel really hard. So I always go through my kids' sentimental bins. I have 2. I have one for the boys because a lot of theirs is shared sentimental stuff since they have used a lot of the same things over the years. And then my daughter has a sentimental bin. Before we move, I'm going to pop off the top. It'll take 2 seconds, just kind of like skim through it. Is there anything that doesn't make my heart sing anymore? I'll take it out, bring it to the CAC or wherever I'm donating it, and put the top back on, right? Just do a quick once over of that. But any outgrown clothes, toys, baby gear you no longer need, you do not want that stuff. Right now, we're getting rid of our high chair. I can't believe it. But my oldest is 4. We haven't used a high chair. We used a high chair until he was like 3.5, like on movie nights, because he's a messy baby. God love him. But, it's just easier to plop him in there and he'd have his table, and it was like a little more contained when he was eating and whatever. I don't think it's weird to have a 3.5-year-old in a high chair. It was a big high chair. Okay. But at this point, we're not bringing it with us. We are finally parting with our mommy's helpers because we realized that ours they're beautiful, but they take up a lot of space. Those are the stools that help the kids help you in the kitchen. And our kids are all old enough now that we feel confident they can stand on a chair without falling off and dying. And so if we have them help us in the kitchen, we can either use a stool, which we have stools because we're going to have one that used to be in the guest bathroom here, and we don't think we're going to use it in a guest bathroom in our new house. So that can become the kitchen stool, or they can stand on a chair. So those other big kind of clunkier mother's helpers are going. So really think through baby gear or like young kid gear that you no longer need, because that tends to take up a lot of space. What can you get by without? Honestly, those are the big things I would really focus on. Okay. So those are the clunky stuff, the 4 big clunky things: shoes, furniture, paperwork, books. And then the 2 big categories I would really focus on are kitchen and kid stuff, because that stuff will affect your life. It'll affect the cost of the move. It will affect your life more intensely when you arrive in terms of starting a fresh start. However, I have 4 bonus things that I really would focus on. The first one is decor and seasonal items. Keep only the decorations and seasonal gear you actually use and love. I'm going to be parting with some Christmas pillows. It's kind of hard for me because they're so beautiful and so cute. But in my decluttering journey, I've learned that I don't need 4 Christmas pillows. I don't need any. I like to have some, but I'm going to keep 2. I have 4 of them. I'm going to keep 2. For me, I've learned I don't need to decorate for fall. So I've pretty much gotten rid of all of that already. But I do think I have a box of seasonal decor in the garage I need to go through. I just don't want to bring that stuff to the new house because that becomes that deeper clutter that just stays in the garage, right? So I would encourage you to go through the decor and seasonal items and just get rid of it. You don't need a different dish towel for every holiday. You don't, right? That kind of stuff just takes up space and it's so unnecessary. A big one that is more obvious, and you're going to do this anyway, but is toiletries and medications. You really don't want to bring expired stuff with you. Most of it's going to go bad if it's being shipped. Like ours is going to be shipped for like a month in the middle of summer. That's not going to go well, right? So either we need to use those consumable items, or honestly, you might have to trash some. And that's just like the price you pay of moving, but that's also the price you pay of decluttering. And like we've said before, it's not about just being okay with overconsumption and waste. It's about changing your habits moving forward. So if you're, in order to have a decluttered underneath your kitchen cabinet, you have to get rid of 7 bottles of lotion. So be it. That's going to change your consumption of lotion moving forward. You're not going to buy new bottles you don't need. If someone gifts you a bottle, then you're not going to go buy your usual bottle. You use the gifted one instead of letting it sit there. It's going to change your consumption moving forward. And we have to focus on that win instead of the loss of the waste of the ones that we're throwing away. So make sure you just go through your medicine cabinet and underneath those bathroom sinks and toss anything that it's expired or that you're not going to use before you move. Don't try and put lotion and stuff in a little bag and make it work moving where you're going to go next. You don't want all that back stock with you anyway. Unless, like I said, if you're moving down the street, I'm thinking cross country move. If you're moving down the street, fine, bring some of your lotions, but don't bring all of it. You don't want to clutter up your new under your sink. Be really ruthless about this move. Like, think about what would my ideal new space look like and only bring that. Don't go into this whole what if or I could or I what. No, this is your chance to be ruthless because you're starting fresh, and make sure you build up from the ground up, from 0 up. What is the least amount I can get by with? Because that is going to make you feel so much freer and lighter. Let this be a good excuse to do the hard thing. Next, kind of like bonus thing that I really think you should go through are all those random cables, the miscellaneous junk, old electronics, mystery items sitting in junk drawers. Let them go. If you're not willing to put in the work to find whatever electronic that they need to be plugged into that probably doesn't work anymore anyway, then it's not that important to you. I am personally getting rid of an old computer that I've been telling myself I'm going to go back and get photos off of for a million years. I have not done that. I am comfortable with not doing that. I've decided it's okay. I am not living a depressed life not having whatever photos are on there. I can remember most things in my life. And maybe if I saw a photo on there, it might bring up a good memory of X, Y, or Z. But like, I don't have to hold on to every last good memory of my life for my life to be good. And I'm at the point where I'm ready to let that go because clearly it hasn't been important enough to me to turn off the TV one night and actually get in there and do it. And so I'm just not going to keep taking that 4,000 miles into a new house with me. Be ruthless. Just let it go. Just get rid of all of those plugs. You know what? It's a lost cause. I don't need to find out what these go to. It's okay. Bye. Put them in a bag, put them in the trash can, or I don't know, take them to Best Buy or one of those places that takes electronics. Yes, Best Buy. That's an electronics store that has an e-waste facility. So just do that. Also, by the way, if you don't have a Best Buy nearby you, you can recycle your old cords and electronics by contacting your city's sanitation department or using a searchable database like Call to Recycle or Earth 911, and they will find a local electronic waste drop-off location for you. And the last thing that I would encourage you to do is to try and get rid of some of that deeper clutter. So let's say you're like, okay, I did my shoes, I did a quick scan of the furniture. I put the other stuff that I'm not going to be taking with me on Facebook Marketplace. I got the furniture out of my house, did the paperwork, did the books. I went through my kitchen and the kids' toys, right? Some seasonal items. I got rid of the expired, toiletries, medication, some cables. If you have time, then I would focus on some of the deeper clutter, those boxes in your garage, those boxes in the basement. The reason I wouldn't start with those is because we want to affect your life positively in the most meaningful way when you arrive. So you want to do the things that you'll see the greatest benefit from in your new home. Now, of course, you're going to feel a really good benefit of not having miscellaneous boxes of stuff you've been meaning to go through, but you're going to feel a bigger benefit having a kitchen that's more functional and decluttered. You're going to feel a bigger benefit not tripping over your kids' toys all the time. You're going to feel a bigger benefit from not having paid for all these books and that are scattered around the house, or shoes, or that you have nowhere to put your furniture, right? Like these are bigger benefits, but you don't want to bring all those boxes with you. So like I've said this whole episode, moving is a good time to be ruthless. If you don't even know what is in the box, sometimes you don't even need to look at it. I know people who do that. They're like, I don't know what's in this box. Couldn't tell you to save my life. My life is fine. I'm not going to look, because if you look, you're going to find a reason to keep it. If you don't feel like you can take that approach, fine, but don't try and tediously comb through everything. You can do a quick glance through. Just sift through a box without taking it all out. You don't have to do a deep declutter of every single box, because that can slow you down. Pull out 1 or 2 things from each box and move on. Say, this is what I want to keep from here. The rest of it I'm taking to Goodwill, or I'm just taking to the landfill. Put it in the back of your friend's truck. Put it in the back of your car. Say, on Saturday, we're going to the landfill. I'm bringing as much as this as I can. Don't try and do it perfectly. If you have a bunch of that deeper clutter and you're getting ready to move, you will paralyze yourself by trying to do it so perfectly. So I'm a big fan of just kind of one by one looking at the box, looking through, okay, I'll keep this or whatever. You do not have to take everything out and go one by one. Okay, I hope this was helpful if you're getting ready to move, or if you want to do a mock move as motivation to declutter your house. I wish I was the kind of influencer that had the time or energy to film myself as I did this kind of thing in my own house, but like, full disclosure, I don't know how people do that. I'm like, I don't have time to set up a tripod and get a good angle every time I'm like putting stuff in a box or putting it to Goodwill. I do it sometimes, but there's people that are really good at like blogging these different experiences. Maybe someday. Never say never. I'm not great at it, but I will try and share part of this journey on my social media, paring_down, if you're not following there yet. But I can't make any promises, because sometimes I just got to get this stuff done. If you have a favorite influencer that's really good at sharing their daily life, thank them, because it is so much work. I do not know how they do it. All right. Well, you guys are the best. Happy moving, happy staying. And I hope that you live in a lighter, freer home. I'll see you next week. You just listened to an episode of Paring Down with me, Shannon Leyko. If you enjoyed the show, it would mean the world if you can leave a review wherever you listen and share this episode with a friend. Those reviews really are what keeps a podcast on its feet for the long haul, and I will read every single one with a huge smile on my face. So thank you ahead of time. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe. Also, be sure to follow along on Instagram at paring_down, where I offer lots of tips and inspiration for paring down, along with what's new here on the podcast. Till next time.